The vast darkness of space lit up with explosions as coalition ships burned. Their once proud fleet now scattered and broken. For 3 years, the Void Empire had pushed them back, system by system. Now, at the edge of the Orion Nebula, the final defensive line was breaking. Admiral Thrix watched from the bridge of his flagship as another cruiser exploded. His 4 arms gripped the command rail tighter, skin turning pale blue with stress. The Coalition, with all its advanced technology, was losing. Their energy shields failed against the Void Empire's new disruptors. Their quantum weapons barely scratched the enemy hulls. "Send the distress call again," Thrix ordered, voice low. "To all Coalition members." His communications officer nodded, sending the signal into the depths of space. Thrix knew it was likely too late. Help would never arrive in time. 50 light-years away, Captain Marcus Reed of the HSS Dauntless received the transmission. The human warship hung in orbit around Jupiter, finishing its final tests before joining the Coalition fleet for training exercises. The Dauntless was humanity's pride. Their first true interstellar warship built with a mix of Earth technology and Coalition science. Reed stood tall on his bridge, listening to the desperate message play. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his eyes narrowed. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, all hearing the same call for help. "Sir," Lieutenant Wilson at Communications spoke up. "Coalition Command has ordered all reserve ships to hold position. They say the battle is already lost." Reed nodded slowly. "And what does Earth Command say?" "They're still discussing the situation, sir." Reed looked at the main screen showing the Coalition fleet's position. The Dauntless was the newest ship from Earth, the newest member of the Coalition. Humans were considered primitive by galactic standards. Their technology was a strange mix of old and new. The Coalition had kept them away from actual fighting, not trusting the newcomers in battle. "Lieutenant Torres, what's our combat readiness?" Reed asked. Torres looked up from the tactical station. "All systems green, sir. We're fully armed and ready." Engineer Jackson spoke next. "Engines are at peak efficiency, Captain. We can make the jump immediately." Reed walked to the center of the bridge. "The Coalition took us in when other species wanted to quarantine Earth. They shared technology, medicine, knowledge. They called us primitive, but gave us a seat at the table anyway." He looked around at his crew, all human, all trained for a war they hadn't yet fought. "I've read Earth history. I know what happens when good people stand by and do nothing while others fight for survival." Reed's voice grew stronger. "We might be new to space, but humans know something about fighting against the odds." "Sir," Torres said quietly, "if we go against orders, we could be court-martialed." Reed almost smiled. "Can't court-martial us if we're dead, Lieutenant, and we can't call ourselves Coalition members if we let our allies die without trying to help." He straightened his uniform and took his command chair. "Navigation, plot a jump to the Orion defensive line. Engineering, push the engines to maximum. Tactical, ready all weapons. Communications, inform Earth we're responding to a distress call." The bridge crew moved with purpose now, hands flying over controls. "What about Coalition Command's orders, sir?" Wilson asked. "Tell them." Reed paused, then his face hardened with determination. "Tell them the Dauntless is coming, and they should steel themselves. Humanity is entering the fray." The massive engines of the human warship flared to life. The Dauntless turned away from Jupiter's peaceful orbit and accelerated toward the jump point, toward a battle they weren't supposed to fight, toward a destiny no one had predicted. The HSS Dauntless burst from the jump point in a flash of light, directly into chaos. Coalition ships scattered across the battlefield, many damaged and burning. The massive Void Empire vessels, black as space itself with glowing purple lines along their hulls, moved like predators among wounded prey. "Tactical assessment," Captain Reed ordered, his voice steady despite the scene before them. Lieutenant Torres quickly scanned the readings. Coalition forces down to 36% of their original strength. Void Empire has lost minimal ships. Their main fleet surrounds the Coalition command vessel. Open a channel to Admiral Thrix, Reed said. The main screen flickered, then showed the alien admiral. His blue skin was now almost white with stress, all four of his eyes widening at the sight of the human captain. Captain Reed, what is the meaning of this? Earth vessels were ordered to stay in reserve. We received your distress call, Admiral. The Dauntless is reporting for duty. A harsh laugh came from somewhere off-screen on the Admiral's bridge. Another alien stepped into view, tall, with 6 limbs and green-tinged skin. This is what comes to our rescue. A human ship. They still use physical metals in their hull. The alien, clearly another Coalition officer, didn't bother hiding his disgust. Commander Zell, Thrix said sharply, any help is welcome at this point. Reed ignored the insult. What's your situation, Admiral? Dire, Captain. The Void Empire has developed technology that disrupts our energy shields and renders our quantum weapons ineffective. Our ships are defenseless. As if to demonstrate, a nearby Coalition cruiser's shields flickered and died as a void beam struck it. The ship exploded moments later. They're broadcasting some kind of interference pattern. Thrix continued. Nothing we have works against it. Reed exchanged glances with Torres. Sir, Torres said, our main weapons are railguns and physical missiles, with energy weapons as backup. A spark of interest showed in Thrix's eyes. Physical weapons? Like projectiles. Exactly. Reed nodded. Old-fashioned kinetic kill weapons, just accelerated with new technology. Steel-jacketed rounds, tungsten penetrators, and fusion warheads. Commander Zell made a sound of disgust. Barbaric and primitive. What good are solid projectiles against? An explosion rocked the Admiral's ship, cutting off the transmission temporarily. When it returned, smoke filled the bridge. We're taking heavy fire, Thrix said. Our flagship won't last much longer. Captain Reed, I formally request your assistance. Primitive weapons and all. Reed nodded. Moving to your position. Dauntless out. He turned to his crew. Battle stations. Helm, bring us between the flagship and those void ships. Engineering, full power to engines and kinetic weapon systems. Leave the energy weapons offline for now. The Dauntless accelerated, its massive hull gleaming in the light of distant stars. The Void Empire ships, noticing the newcomer, turned some of their attention toward it. They're scanning us, Torres reported. Targeting systems activating. Let them come, Reed said. Let's see if their fancy disruptors work on good old-fashioned steel. The first void beam struck the Dauntless directly. The crew braced for impact, but instead of catastrophic damage, the beam merely scorched the outer hull. Minimal damage, Torres reported, surprised. Their disruptors are designed for energy shields, not physical armor. Reed allowed himself a small smile. Humanity remembered something the rest of the galaxy forgot. Sometimes the old ways work best. Open fire, all railguns. Target their command ship. The Dauntless shuddered as its main guns fired. Massive steel projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds, streaked across space. The void ship, expecting energy weapons to disperse against its defenses, had no answer for the physical rounds that tore through its hull. Admiral Thrix and his crew watched in amazement as the primitive human ship scored direct hits where their advanced weapons had failed. Impossible, Commander Zell whispered. No, Thrix replied, hope returning to his voice. Not impossible. Just human. Alarms blared across the Void Empire fleet. Their commanders had never seen anything like this. A ship that ignored their disruptors and fired physical projectiles that tore through their hulls. The Dauntless continued its barrage, each shot finding its mark with devastating effect. Target their engines and weapon systems, Reed ordered. Don't give them time to adapt. Torres worked the tactical station with practiced efficiency. They're regrouping, sir. 3 ships moving to surround us. The Dauntless shook as return fire struck its hull. While the physical armor protected against the disruptors, conventional energy weapons still caused damage. Hull breach on Deck 4, Engineer Jackson reported from her station. Sealing now. Armor holding at 70% integrity. Reed studied the battlefield display. The void ships moved with precision, using formations designed to trap energy-based vessels. But the Dauntless wasn't bound by the same rules. They expect us to maintain distance, Reed said. Lieutenant Torres, what would happen if we closed to point-blank range? Torres looked up, surprise on his face. Their targeting systems are calibrated for long-range engagement. Close quarters would force manual targeting. But, sir, we'd be exposed to multiple weapon systems. And they'd be exposed to ours, Reed countered. Helm full thrust. Take us straight through their formation. Engineering. Divert power to forward armor plates. The human ship surged forward, directly toward the 3 void vessels attempting to encircle it. On the enemy bridges, confusion reigned. The human vessel is approaching at attack speed. A void commander hissed. They cannot be serious. Prepare all weapons. But the Dauntless moved faster than they anticipated. Before their gunners could adjust, the human ship was among them, massive and threatening at close range. Fire all port-side missiles, Reed commanded. Target their closest ship's propulsion systems. Missile tubes opened along the Dauntless's hull. Unlike the energy weapons the Void Empire was used to dealing with, these were physical rockets carrying explosive warheads. They crossed the short distance in seconds, detonating against the enemy vessel. The explosion ripped through the void ship. With its engines crippled, it spun out of formation. Sir, Torres called out. The enemy vessels are dropping debris as they're hit. Reed nodded. Standard practice. Clear the wreckage from our path. Torres paused, an idea forming. Captain, what if we don't? The debris contains their hull materials and technology. If we maneuver through it instead. Reed caught on immediately. It would provide cover and confuse their targeting systems. He smiled. Make it happen, Lieutenant. Instead of avoiding the floating wreckage of destroyed ships, the Dauntless now deliberately maneuvered among it. The Void Empire's sensors, designed to track clean energy signatures, struggled to distinguish the human ship from the debris. From his flagship, Admiral Thrix watched in amazement. What are they doing? Using the debris as cover, Commander Zell said, his earlier disdain replaced with grudging respect. I've never seen such tactics. The Dauntless emerged from the debris field directly behind a Void command ship. At this range, the railguns were devastating. Rounds punched through the rear of the enemy vessel, destroying its bridge and main systems before it could respond. 2 down, Torres reported. The 3rd is attempting to retreat. Let it go, Reed decided. We need to help the Admiral's ship. He opened a channel. Admiral Thrix, this is Captain Reed. We've created a gap in their lines. Can your vessels follow us through? Thrix appeared on screen, eyes wide with disbelief. Follow you? Captain, you've just destroyed 2 void ships in under 5 minutes. And there are more to go, Reed said firmly. We can punch a hole for your remaining ships, but we need to move now. Thrix nodded. Understood. We'll follow your lead. As the coalition ships formed up behind the Dauntless, the Void Empire commanders faced something they hadn't experienced in years: uncertainty. Their perfect tactics, their superior technology, meant nothing against this primitive vessel with its steel hull and kinetic weapons. The humans fight like no species we've encountered, a Void commander reported to their high command. They don't follow standard combat protocols. They use the wreckage as strategy. They close to suicide range. The response was immediate. Destroy them at all costs. The battle paused briefly as both sides regrouped. The Dauntless had secured a small victory, but the Void Empire still controlled most of the battlefield. Captain Reed used this moment to invite Admiral Thrix aboard to discuss their next move. This is extraordinary, Thrix said as he walked the corridors of the human vessel. His 4 eyes scanned everything with intense curiosity. Your ship is so physical. Reed nodded as he led the alien admiral toward the engine room. Humans have always believed in redundant systems. If our advanced technology fails, we can fall back on more basic methods. They passed a repair team welding a damaged section of hull. The crew worked with their hands, using tools instead of the automated repair systems common on coalition ships. Your people repair damage during battle? Fricks asked, amazed. Always have, Reed replied. On Earth's oceans, sailors would patch holes while under fire. We brought that tradition to space. They reached engineering where Chief Jackson was directing her team. Pipes and conduits ran everywhere, with steam occasionally venting from pressure release valves. Unlike the clean, nearly empty engine rooms of coalition ships, the Dauntless's heart was a complex maze of machinery. Our main power comes from fusion reactors, Jackson explained to the admiral. But we have backup chemical engines if those fail. And if all else fails, we have manual controls for critical systems. Fricks touched a steel pipe, feeling its solidity. The Void Empire's disruptors target computerized systems and energy fields. Your physical components and manual backups make you nearly immune. Not immune, Jackson corrected. Just harder to kill. We still take damage, but we're designed to keep functioning despite it. The tour continued to the mess hall, where the admiral watched human crew members eating together. The casual conversation and laughter surprised him. Your crew seems relaxed, Fricks observed, even after such intense combat. Reed smiled. Humans need to decompress after stress. Sharing food and stories helps us process fear and prepare for the next challenge. They don't fear death, Fricks asked quietly. They do, Reed answered honestly, but they fear failing their friends more. Human history is full of people who risked everything to protect others. It's in our nature. The Admiral's communication device chimed. The Void Fleet is regrouping. They're bringing in reinforcements. Reed nodded. Then let's finish our tour in the tactical room. We need to plan our next move. In the tactical center, Lieutenant Torres had mapped the entire battlefield. Coalition officers and human crew stood together, studying the display. Their main force is here. Torres pointed to a cluster of enemy ships. They've adapted their tactics somewhat, but they still don't fully understand our capabilities. Commander Zell, who had joined the Admiral aboard the Dauntless, spoke up. We cannot win through direct engagement. We have too few ships remaining. Perhaps we don't need to win through force alone, Reed suggested. The Void Empire expects certain behaviors from coalition ships. What if we change the rules entirely? He turned to Fricks. Admiral, do your remaining ships have physical materials aboard? Metal plating, construction supplies, anything solid? Fricks thought for a moment. Yes, for repairs and construction projects. Why? Reed smiled. I propose we modify your ships, at least superficially. Attach physical armor to their outer hulls, even if it's just a thin layer. It might provide some protection against their disruptors. Engineer Jackson nodded enthusiastically. We could also help them convert some energy weapons to launch physical projectiles instead. Nothing fancy. Even metal scraps would work at high enough velocities. The coalition officers looked skeptical, but Fricks considered the idea seriously. You want us to downgrade our technology? No, Reed said firmly. I want you to diversify it. The most advanced weapon is the one your enemy can't counter. Right now, that's the simplest one we have. Fricks looked around at the human ship, with its strange mix of advanced technology and basic engineering. Then he looked at his own officers, their confidence shattered by repeated defeats. Very well, Captain Reed. We will try your human approach. Show us how to fight with steel. A strange fleet emerged from the shelter of a nearby nebula. The coalition ships looked different now. Their sleek hulls covered with makeshift armor plating. Metal panels, spare parts, and even internal bulkheads had been repurposed and attached to their outer surfaces. The Dauntless led this odd formation, its battle-scarred hull at the front. Void fleet in visual range, Torres reported. They'd formed a defensive wall around their command ship. Reed studied the tactical display. They're expecting us to attack from a distance. They don't realize we've modified the coalition ships. The past 8 hours had been a frenzy of activity. Human engineers had worked alongside alien crews, teaching them how to attach physical armor and convert energy cannons to fire solid projectiles. The work was rough, improvised, but effective. All ships report ready, Captain, Wilson said from communications. Admiral Thrix is asking for final confirmation of the plan. Reed opened the channel. Admiral, are your crews prepared? This won't be like any battle you fought before. Thrix appeared on screen, his ship's bridge now similarly modified with manual controls and physical backups. My people are nervous, Captain. This approach goes against centuries of our tactical doctrine. Sometimes winning means embracing the unexpected, Reed said. Remember, stay close, use the debris fields as cover, and don't be afraid to take hits on your new armor. The Admiral nodded. We're ready. And Captain, thank you for teaching us how to fight like humans. The modified coalition fleet accelerated toward the waiting Void Empire forces. The enemy commanders, seeing familiar ship profiles, prepared their usual tactics. Enemy ships approaching. A Void tactician reported. They appeared damaged or modified, but signatures confirm coalition vessels. Prepare disruptors, the Void commander ordered. Target their main systems as usual. The trap was set. As the Void ships fired their disruptors, expecting to disable the coalition fleet, something unexpected happened. The energy beams struck the improvised metal plating and dissipated, causing minimal damage. Their shields are absorbing our disruptors, the tactician exclaimed in confusion. Not shields, the commander realized too late. Physical armor. The coalition ships closed the distance rapidly, following the Dauntless's lead. When they came within range, they fired their newly converted weapons. Instead of energy beams, they launched physical projectiles, metal fragments, compressed matter, even repurposed maintenance drones, all accelerated to incredible speeds. The Void ships, designed to deflect energy weapons, had little defense against this barrage of physical objects. Their hulls cracked and broke as the makeshift projectiles tore through them. Press the advantage, Reed ordered. All ships target their command vessel. The coalition fleet converged on the Void flagship, but the enemy was adapting quickly. They adjusted their formation, using their undamaged ships as shields while bringing up reinforcements. They're establishing a new defensive line, Torres warned, and they're changing their weapon configurations. Reed nodded grimly. They're learning. Lieutenant Wilson, scan their communications. Look for command and control patterns. Wilson focused on his console, filtering through the electronic chatter. There's something strange, Captain. Their ships all communicate through a central frequency hub. It's encrypted but follows regular patterns. Can you identify the source? Reed asked. Wilson worked frantically, his fingers flying over the controls. Yes, it's coming from a small vessel behind their main line. Appears to be a dedicated communication ship. Reed's eyes narrowed. That's it. Their command structure relies on that communications hub. Torres, prepare all railguns. Wilson, share the target coordinates with the coalition ships. The battle grew more intense as the Void Empire realized their advantage was slipping away. They launched a fierce counterattack, focusing their fire on the Dauntless. The human ship's armor began to buckle under the concentrated assault. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7, Jackson reported. Armor failing in multiple sections. We can't take much more of this. We just need a few more minutes, Reed insisted. All power to forward batteries. Coalition ships to provide covering fire. As the Dauntless lined up its shot, the communications hub suddenly changed position, as if aware it had been discovered. Target moving. Torres called out. Track it, Reed ordered calmly. Everyone else has taught these aliens to fear advanced technology. We'll teach them to fear human determination. The Dauntless shuddered as another barrage hit its already weakened hull. Warning lights flashed across every console on the bridge. The air grew thin as life support systems failed in multiple sections. Direct hit to our main power relays, Jackson reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. Switching to secondary systems, armor integrity down to 30%. Reed gripped his command chair as the ship rocked again. Status on the target. Torres worked through the smoke filling the bridge, still tracking the communications vessel. It's staying behind their largest ships, using them as shields. A massive explosion lit up space nearby. One of the coalition ships, its makeshift armor finally giving way, broke apart under concentrated void fire. Admiral Thrix is reporting heavy casualties across the fleet, Wilson said gravely. He's asking if we should withdraw. Reed studied the tactical display. They were so close to their target, but the cost was mounting with every second. Hard decisions were part of command, but this one weighed heavily. Captain, Dr. Rivera called from the medical station. I've been monitoring the data we've collected on the void ships. There's something unusual about their internal systems. Reed turned to the medical officer. This isn't the time, Doctor. It is, sir, Rivera insisted. Their ships contain biological components, living tissue integrated with their technology. It's how they coordinate so perfectly. This caught Reed's attention. Biological? Are you certain? Rivera nodded. Our scans confirm it. Their ships are partly alive. Engineered organisms merged with machines. That's why their responses are so quick and adaptive. Reed thought for a moment. And what affects living tissue that might not affect machines? Many things, Rivera said, understanding dawning. Radiation, toxins, biological agents. Or medical nanites, Jackson interrupted. Captain, we have a stock of surgical nanites in the medical bay. They're programmed to repair human tissue, but they could be reprogrammed, Rivera finished, to target void biological components instead. Hope flickered across Reed's face. How quickly? Minutes for the reprogramming, Rivera said. But delivery is the problem. They'd need to be dispersed directly into their ships. The ship rocked again as another hit landed. A support beam crashed down nearby, narrowly missing the tactical station. Life support failing on decks 8 through 12, Jackson reported. Hull breaches multiplying faster than we can seal them. Reed made his decision. Helm, plot a collision course with the communications vessel. The bridge fell silent. Even over the sounds of battle, those words carried weight. Sir, Torres asked quietly. You heard me, Lieutenant, Reed said firmly. If we can't shoot through their defenses, we'll deliver the nanites directly. Dr. Rivera, start reprogramming. Jackson, prepare to vent the nanites through our forward sections on impact. The crew exchanged glances but moved to obey. No one questioned the order. Captain, Frix's voice came over the comm. Our sensors show you're accelerating toward their center. What are you doing? Creating an opening, Admiral, Reed replied calmly. Be ready to exploit it. Target everything you have on their command ships once their communications fail. Reed stood and addressed his crew. I won't order anyone to stay aboard. Escape pods are still functional on the starboard side. Those who wish to leave should go now. Not a single crew member moved toward the exits. It's been an honor serving with you all, Reed said, pride evident in his voice. The Dauntless accelerated, its damaged engines pushing to their limits. The Void Fleet, realizing the human ship's intention, concentrated their fire to stop it. Hull plating tore away. Entire sections decompressed. But the ship kept coming. In the medical bay, Rivera worked frantically to reprogram the nanites. Almost there, he muttered. Just a few more parameters. On the bridge, Reed watched the distance to target shrink rapidly. The communications vessel tried to evade, but the Dauntless adjusted course relentlessly. 30 seconds to impact, Torres announced. Jackson's hands flew across her console, preparing to vent nanites on your command. As the distance closed, Reed thought of Earth, of home, of all that had led him to this moment. He took a deep breath of the thinning air and spoke his final order. For humanity, for the coalition, steel yourself. The collision never came. 5 seconds before impact, the Dauntless fired all remaining thrusters, adjusting its course by mere meters. Instead of a direct hit, the human ship scraped along the side of the Void communications vessel, tearing open both hulls. Now, Reed shouted through the chaos. Jackson slammed her hand down on the emergency release. Throughout the forward sections of the Dauntless, vents opened, spewing clouds of reprogrammed medical nanites into space and directly into the open wounds of the Void ship. Nanite deployment successful, Rivera confirmed, clinging to his station as the ship shuddered violently. If my programming works, they'll target the biological components and neutralize them. The Dauntless, its momentum carrying it past the communication ship, spun wildly. Control systems failed across all decks. Emergency lighting flickered on and off. The crew held on as their vessel, broken but unbowed, tumbled through space. Did it work? Reed asked, pulling himself up from the floor where the impact had thrown him. Torres checked his damaged console. Uncertain, sir. Our sensors are barely functioning. For several tense moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then Wilson called out from communications. Sir, I'm picking up confusion in the Void communications. Their signals are becoming erratic. On the tactical display, the organized formations of the Void fleet began to falter. Ships moved without coordination, some colliding with others, some firing at empty space. The nanites, Rivera said with quiet wonder. They're disrupting the biological components that coordinate their fleet. Admiral Thrix's voice crackled through the damaged comm system. Captain Reed, what have you done? Their ships are malfunctioning across the entire battlefield. Press the advantage, Admiral, Reed ordered, his voice steady despite the blood running down his face from a gash on his forehead. The effect may be temporary. The coalition fleet, seeing their opportunity, surged forward. Their makeshift weapons tore into the now disorganized Void ships. What had been an orderly Empire fleet dissolved into chaos as ship after ship lost coordinated control. It's working, Torres reported, a note of awe in his voice. The Void command structure is collapsing. The bridge crew watched in amazement as their desperate gamble paid off. The Void flagship, its biological systems compromised by the spreading nanites, drifted powerless. Coalition ships surrounded it, demanding surrender. Jackson checked her engineering displays. Captain, we have multiple critical failures throughout the ship. Life support is failing on all decks. Hull integrity below 20%. Reed nodded grimly. Begin evacuation procedures. All hands to escape pods. As the order went out, Wilson received an incoming transmission. Sir, it's Admiral Thrix. He's requesting to speak with you. The alien admiral appeared on the cracked view screen. For the first time, Reed saw something like respect in the alien's 4 eyes. Captain Reed, you've done the impossible. The Void Empire is retreating across all sectors. Their biological control systems are completely disrupted. Reed managed a tired smile. Glad to hear it. Admiral, now, if you wouldn't mind sending some rescue ships, the Dauntless has given all she has to give. Already en route, Captain. Hold on just a little longer. As the transmission ended, Reed looked around at his damaged bridge, at his loyal crew still at their posts despite the danger. The ship that wasn't supposed to fight had won a war. 3 days later, Reed stood in the observation lounge of Thrix's flagship. Through the massive windows, he could see the Dauntless being towed gently by coalition vessels. Despite her terrible wounds, the human ship had survived. The repair crews say she can be saved, Thrix said, coming to stand beside Reed. It will take time, but the Dauntless will fly again. Reed nodded, watching his ship. She's tougher than she looks. Like humans, Thrix observed. The Coalition Council has been in emergency session since the battle. Your tactics, your technology, they've changed everything. How so? For centuries, we believed advancement meant moving away from the physical toward pure energy and thought. But you showed us the strength and diversity in remembering our origins. Fricks turned to face Reed directly. The Council is establishing a new military doctrine. They're calling it the Steel Protocol. Reed raised an eyebrow. Steel Protocol. Yes, Fricks said with what passed for a smile among his species, a reminder that sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best. That steel, both the metal and the resolve it represents, still has a place in this galaxy. Outside, Coalition ships moved past, many now sporting physical armor alongside their energy shields. New designs were already being drawn up, incorporating human ingenuity with alien technology. What happens now? Reeve asked. Now. Fricks looked out at the stars. Now we rebuild. We learn from each other. And we prepare, because the Void Empire will return someday. Reed nodded, his hand resting on the window frame as he watched the Dauntless being guided home. And when they do, we'll be ready. All of us. Together.